This is Intersect with Jaqueline Proctor, and today I have a fabulous first guest for my show, Jimbo Valentine. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I really was excited that you said yes and that you wanted to come share some time with me today because your work is just everywhere and it's so prolific. It's really an understatement. Tell me how large your catalog is, just to start.
Well, I've done about over 1,400 gig posters for different events and bands and things around the region, country, and I've done at least 30 album covers and
Wow.
countless teachers' designs and everything in between.
Has graphic artistry always been that core passion of yours?
Yeah, when I was little, I was always very into art and loved it through school. I always took as many art classes as I could and everything. And I started going to college for art, but then kind of got a little
Sidetracked?
yeah, dropped out of school, and then I didn't really do anything for a while. And then when I moved here about 15 years ago, about 10 years ago, I started getting back into it and taught myself how to Photoshop and everything, and just really reignited everything.
Tell me a little bit about your process, or is there a process? I know you like to spend time at home and the juices get flowing, but are there particular inspirations at any time?
Not really. Every project is its own inspiration. You know, like when I do a lot of gig posters, the bands are obviously the biggest inspiration. And I'll listen to the music and I'll look at the imagery that maybe they already have or whatever and try to like be inspired by that, but you know, put my own spin on it. And then other times, who really knows where inspiration comes from, you know?
That's true. That's true. And just to expand on that point for a second, if you were in a position to teach someone, and I believe you can't teach creativity, but how would you express that creative process to them to maybe take a look inside and see if they have creativity in their own way?
Oh, I don't know. It really is hard to teach creativity. Like I could teach somebody processes to how I make art, and then maybe they could use that for inspiration. But other than that, I just take it in and take it inside me and try to see what happens. And sometimes it comes instantly. I'll just get maybe one singular image in my mind. And other times, I'm like, oh my, I have to get this done, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, and so I'll just go to the internet and start looking at things, you know, and see if something kind of sparks it, or just really try to become completely engulfed in whatever it is to get the inspiration. And sometimes it still doesn't come till the last minute. Which
Sure,
you know.
Well,
and
deadlines can do that to you. And
sometimes you're like, well, there's no real inspiration for this, so I'm just going to try to make it look as good as I can while, you know, having.
Are you usually left to your own devices, or are the clients or the bands, do they like to peek over your shoulder or make comments? Do you do that kind of process?
Not generally. Thankfully, because of, I guess, the things I've already done, people will just leave me to it, you know, and then I'll make some stuff, and then they'll, you know, give me some response.
Yeah.
Maybe they like it, but they want something a little changed, or they just didn't maybe get an idea across to me that they wanted initially, you know, and then try to do it afterwards. And then sometimes they'll be like, hey, could you just use this promo photo that I have, but you can manipulate it any way you want or whatever. So sometimes they'll give you assets to work with. Other times they might say, hey, could you just give me a 60s retro vibe, or you know, something to that effect. And sometimes
here's a general idea, run with it.
And which it's really cool because sometimes that's all I need. That's gets me in the right headspace. Other times someone tells me something and it completely boxes me in right off the bat, and I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work or where to go from here. And so it's kind of weird because generally I like to be left alone, but I like to get, you know, just a nudge of
Gotcha.
direction.
Gotcha. I understand completely. I have my marching orders. I know what to do next
Yeah.
time. There are so many of your works that I could refer to, and hopefully we'll get a chance to show the audience a couple of these things as well. But this is very unfair because it's like choosing your children. What has been your favorite project? What's turned out so super well that it's just top of the heap?
I don't know. I mean, I really always love the work I do at the Huntington Music and Arts Festival. 'Cause it's always super
Those are
challenging,
great,
and
yeah.
I mean, have been heavily involved with it since the beginning.
Yeah.
And every year it's more and more challenging because we keep expanding it. And like this year, I have to do 12 posters for it, and it's every year it's always like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? How can I make this Huntington centric while still being? And I don't know. I'm just really proud of how it always turns out.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, like last year was the first year I didn't really have a real good idea of what I wanted to do. And when it came down to it, like right at the last minute, I changed my idea, and it like turned out way better than you know. And it was just.
I love it.
But sometimes, like this year, I know what I want to do, but I haven't had the time to start it yet because we've been so busy doing. Like another one of my favorite is I do a lot of work for Tyler Childers. Have you heard?
Yes,
heard of him?
of course.
Yeah. You know, and like that's been a really big deal, and he's getting lots of exposure through Rolling Stone and NPR and all this stuff. And
my gosh.
I've been working with him for years now, like
I'm afraid
6 years
somebody's
or
going to
something.
steal you, take you away from Huntington. Because you came here from Fairmont a few years ago. We won't go to why, but and then you decided to stick around, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And you've made such a mark that it's just they're always so different, but we can always tell that's Jimbo, that's his work. One of my favorites, aside from the Wee Bam that I got from you for our event recently, is the man in his suit with the space helmet and the tiger. What is that? What was that for?
It was for a band called Man Man.
Okay.
And they're just like a really, really eclectic, very hard to describe what they do.
Yeah.
And like when they played at the V Club, it was just like, I had listened to them and they're really cool, but seeing their live show was like something else. So
okay.
I just wanted to, I'd been doing more illustration. I'd got a big digital tablet, and I wanted to do some kind of just, I don't know, like kind of abstract illustration.
Yep.
You know, and I don't know why, but that was just that was one of those times when the image just popped in my head.
Gotcha.
A spaceman with a
love
tiger
In a
at its
suit
feet.
and a tie.
You know,
I
and
love it.
I was
It
like,
is
okay,
awesome.
this is what I'm doing, and that has actually turned out to be one of my favorite things because I've reused that art for art prints and other things as well, and it's kind of become like an identifier for me in some ways.
Part of your brand.
Yeah, like it's kind of cool because sometimes I do stuff and I'll forget that I did it. You know? Other times though, I'm like, yeah, way to go me, and like I'll just adopt that as mine now. I don't know.
Of course.
But that's usually only with like V Club stuff. If someone hires me to do something specific for them, like that's theirs. You
Gotcha.
know? Like the V Club stuff, I do that. I've always done that kind of, a little on the cheap side. So sometimes I
Gotcha.
reuse some of it for my own purposes.
Jimbo, I wanted to ask you, are there other genres that you want to or have thought about creating for? I know you're very heavy in the arts and music scene, and you do things for the V Club, as you said. You do them for jacket covers for CDs for Tyler and just so many other groups. But are there any other areas you want to press into? And I know you kind of are a Comic-Con big fan, so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've actually been working on my own comics and working on a book, and I like doing my own stuff, but I would kind of like to be able to do, maybe do book covers for other people. I've never really done that very much, you know, or like theater posters, like stuff like that. Stuff that I'm not necessarily like super into, but I'm still inspired by it, you know?
Yep.
And I would like to be able to do things just to spread it out a little bit. Like I
Yeah.
recently did a thing for a friend's wedding, like a
Oh.
wedding invite,
Okay.
and it was cool. I still did it kind of in my own style. That's what they wanted, but
Right.
it was just nice being able to do something that wasn't necessarily music related
Sure.
or like
Yeah.
some
That's
kind
what I
of,
was asking. Yeah.
and I don't know.
Are you happy with what you've seen over the years since you've moved here from Fairmont on the art scene? Is it growing? Is it satisfying? Are you happy to be a part of it? Are there things that you'd like to see be better or grow faster? Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, my good friend Chris Lusher, we started doing shows at Blank Gallery, which was just in an open room at the River Tower.
Oh, okay.
And started getting, just people to bring their art. Like, a lot of us were just referred to it as like bedroom artists, people that make stuff and stick it under their bed and don't let anybody ever see it, So it's just trying to give people an opportunity to put their stuff on display and let them realize that, hey, if you put it out there, someone will like it, It may be not a million people, but someone will like it,
Right.
And then we kind of took that and mixed it in with the expanding the art side of the Music and Arts Festival.
Right.
And now that's turned into a whole other thing, which has inspired other people, like my friend Zach doing the Culture Storm stuff. Maybe you met him at the
Yes, I did.
at the BAM, and like that's just been. It's really cool to see that happen because you don't want to go around patting yourself on the back too hard, but I feel like I had a little bit of part in germinating that seed.
I think you're right.
And it's really cool to see it happen. And as far as that goes, I would like to. We're trying to this year get involved with the Museum of Art.
Oh, great.
And we're doing
What you
one of
doing?
our events in the studios behind the museum.
Okay.
So
Will this be part of?
of HMAF? Yeah.
HMAF? Okay.
It'll be it's called Art on the Edge. It's the art night. And last year was out at the West Edge Factory.
Yes, I went to that. That was
Yeah.
really great.
And then like this year we can't do it because they're pretty in the middle of building stuff out there. It's
Okay.
pretty tore up.
Okay.
So we're going to do it up at the museum, and I would like to be able to get the museum to be able to, open its arms a little bit to more local artists,
Sure.
and because one of the things I have tried to do with all of this is just like remove a little bit of the pretension from art. It doesn't all have to be stiff shirts and gaudy frames, like
Right.
anybody can be an artist literally,
Okay.
and it's subjective,
That
it
is
doesn't
true.
have to be a fancy oil painting of a lady sitting by a lake or like whatever. It can be anything, and I just wish people would be a little more accommodating of that mindset, I guess.
Do you think, this might be a chicken or egg question, but is it the art that will attract more people to possibly live in Huntington or have a reason to say, well, they've got a really solid arts and culture scene that makes it more attractive? Or do you keep working at expanding on the arts and culture scene to attract more people?
Well, I think both of those things are true. I really do think that over time, as more and more like things like this go on, that people will realize what's going on here and see that we do have a good art scene and a good music scene and a really supportive community,
Yep.
people within
you're
those, and any place like Austin or places that are really driven by artists, like Huntington is,
I think it
by
has the
all
potential
accounts,
for that,
yeah.
don't you?
I mean, it has the perfect ingredients of, it's actually pretty cheap to live here. Most artists are poor.
Right.
They just want to be around like-minded people,
Right.
and that the setup is here for that.
Gotcha.
Now, as far as like going beyond that, I mean, the art scene is not the only thing here. We
Right,
also
I'm
have
sure.
other things, and we also have some not great things going on here. That you would obviously have to deal with, but I feel like that happens everywhere now.
Everywhere.
So.
Right.
In the end, I don't know. I think it could really help. I think it's helped put a positive spin of how people view us,
Right.
at least in the region.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I
I
don't know
agree.
how widespread it is as far as the country, because we have a pretty bad name all over the country at this point in time.
Yeah,
you
it
know.
depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but I think in terms of art, if they
Yeah.
were to explore our community more,
mean,
you'd,
you know.
you'd find an amazing treasure trove of individuals.
Absolutely. Like, I know so many talented people that all do different things. And that's what's really cool about the art scene is, like, you know, we have a few people that are, like, really good photographers, but they don't really do the same thing, you know? And
Right.
we have people that can paint and draw and just do computer art, but everybody's art is different. And
Okay.
it's all,
Yep.
they have their little niche or whatever inspires them, and it makes for a really nice collection of things when you put it all
Yeah, it
together, you
does.
know?
Yeah.
Like, really, like you said, you went to the Art on the Edge thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we did that also, the Pop Visions thing out there. Did you go to that one?
I didn't get a chance to.
But, like, that was all kind of inspired by that, and it was just like, when we get it all in there together, and it was just, you know, that warehouse that was like 20,000 square feet
perfect
there, and it
place.
was just
Yeah.
filled with everybody's art
It
of
was
all
perfect.
kinds, and I'm not talking about just, you know, like classic graphic art or whatever,
Yeah.
but like people making macaroons, like very artistic food thing, you know,
Yes,
stuff
yeah.
that's not just, you know, art doesn't just have to be paper or graphic
Right.
design or whatever. It can be anything, really.
And it can be blended
And it
very,
can.
very well. When I went to the Edge, that sounds funny, but yes, when I went to the Edge, and I hate to draw this analogy in a way, but it's so perfect for where I moved from to come here, and it reminded me so much of, I had the inside track to this great event down in Soho that only a handful of people would know about when you lived in New York, and you felt very privileged and, you know, extra on the edge because
Yeah.
you got a chance to go. So I know that that wasn't trying to be replicated, but it was so unique, and all I could think of is, I want all my friends from New York and California and Chicago, I want them to be here right now to see the incredible creativity of the artists here in Huntington, and you represent that very, very, very well, and I just like your vibe. How about that?
Thank you.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for being with me and sharing some time. This is going to be great. You are my first guest, and I'm really looking forward to maybe having you come back another time. But have a great rest of your evening or what have you, and thanks again for sharing some time with me and with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being with me on the River Review, The Intersect.